Nature and Wildlife of Arizona by a MisFit wanderer. This photo-video documentary was produced as a way to teach, inspire, and share the passion I have found in the splendor and beauty of our country's 48th state and the home we call Arizona. For almost 10 years now, and the third time in Arizona, I have been called back to the Grand Canyon State, each time with a different mission and special calling. This time my calling is to teach others about the habitats so critically needed our protection before the mass extinction of Arizona's biodiversity. Preserving and protecting the habitats of our beautiful and spectacular biodiversity of Arizona and across the globe is now my life's mission. The cause is more important than ever before it's too late and we humans destroy the very resources that keep us from our own extinction. Nature will carry on much better without us, as it did for the billions of years before the species we call Homo sapien was born onto this planet Earth, only a moment ago in geographic time. We have little precious time to change our apathy and ignorance in how we live, understanding our species' connection with the millions of species evolved over the planet's 14 billion years of evolution. It will be either our human saving grace or our end, depending on how we treat our planet's resources in these next years. We are all in this together, so my hope is that we will experience a change of heart and a call to action, finding our passion to help save and protect our planet's biodiversity. Once experienced, our passions can become a force to protect, preserve the most diverse desert in the country and all the many endemic species of plants and animals that call Arizona home. Humans and other life forms are all competing for finite resources, and humans usually win out. We are finally realizing the need to live in harmony with the true native species evolved over millennia and how important they are to the ecosystem and food web. Their species, adopted in an arid desert habitat, is going through long-term drought and the ever-increasing encroachment by human population, destroying much of their natural habitats. This video contains a collage of my favorite photos and a part of my story over the past 10 years exploring, writing, and photographing the nature and wildlife of Arizona with a new lens on life. Many of the photos come from some of the incredible and committed organizations around the valley and across the state. These organizations, with small budgets, do amazing work thanks to the passionate staff and especially the staggering hours volunteers dedicate to the many wonderful and critical conservation efforts, educating, restoring, and saving the habitats and wildlife that we love so much here in Arizona. I came back to Arizona in 2011 to become the education coordinator at the Center for Native and Urban Wildlife at Scottsdale Community College. For close to 10 years, I had a wonderful privilege teaching conservation education, helping support the restoration and research of our Sonoran Desert biodiversity and its special flora and fauna. It has deepened my understanding of the hugely complex web of life, and more importantly, the urgent and critical need to protect, preserve, and restore the precious habitats across the Grand Canyon State for future generations. The Center for Native and Urban Wildlife at Scottsdale Community College was founded in the year 2000 with the vision of their founder, Roy Barnes. With help from the biology department and funding from grants, agencies, and donors, CNU, as they call it, was founded. Roy is no longer with us, but his legacy will live on forever in our hearts and souls. We miss him dearly and vow to carry on his mission, to learn, experience, and then teach others how to appreciate and treasure the exquisite flora and fauna of our Sonoran Desert and to protect and restore these precious habitats for future generations. The mission of CNU is to provide opportunities for students to gain the critical skills and experiences needed to work in the field of conservation, as well as teaching biodiversity to the younger generation of elementary school children, who are the future and the hope to protect, preserve, and restore our planet's critical resources. CNU has also propagated and grown native trees, plants, shrubs, and cacti for its nonprofit funding and for restoration of the many degraded habitats here in the Sonoran Desert. Critical resources for all of Arizona's wildlife and beautiful landscapes. The center's Wildlife Center is home to many orphaned and abandoned animals from the Sonoran Desert, giving them a safe and comfortable home for the remainder of their lives. Mostly they house lizards like the scary Gila monster, the cute and pudgy chuckwalla, and creepy crawlers like the scorpion and vinegroon, all uniquely adapted to the harsh desert extremes of heat and cold. SCC also supports a riparian campus center with its sycamore, mesquite, and palo verde trees shading a 3-tiered pond. Home to the endangered desert pupfish, Gila top minnow, as well as leopard frog, with its beautiful mixture of spotted colors decorating its smooth skin. In 2020, CNU will celebrate 20 years, carrying on Roy's vision and hope for many years to come. There are so many nonprofit organizations, agencies, public and private groups here in the Valley and across the state that are part of the solution, saving, protecting, and restoring Arizona's unique nature and wildlife from the many humans and natural threats. One organization that I'm most familiar with is here in Phoenix. Liberty Wildlife is a nonprofit organization nestled along the mostly dry shores of the Salt River in Phoenix. Liberty Wildlife is one of the most amazing organizations I've ever witnessed and been privileged to be a part of for almost 10 years now. They come with animal ambassadors to the biodiversity tours and teach young children and students how they can be part of the solution. Today, in 2019, at its new facility, they will treat close to 10,000 animals, with almost half being able to be released back into the wild. That's an amazing record in the field of rehabilitation. They also travel all over the state giving wildlife conservation education programs, teaching us all how we can help save, protect, and care for Arizona's beautiful and special wildlife. A few other organizations that are involved in conservation around the valley include one who is a steward of almost 35,000 acres in the McDowell Mountains. The McDowell Sonoran Preserve is an organization that protects and supports research and restoration of the McDowell Mountains and the regional park where so many of us go to relax and unwind in the beautiful Sonoran Desert. Whether mountain biking, hiking, or bird watching, the McDowell Sonoran Preserve is an urban oasis for us and the many varieties of native plants and animals that have a safe and protected place to thrive. Staff and volunteers from the preserve partner with students doing research restoration projects, plant and mammal surveys, and even butterfly counts. Great opportunities for students to gain valuable skills, as well as internship opportunities. There are so many other groups like the Desert Botanical Gardens, Audubon Society, Zoo, Arizona Game and Fish, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, in charge of our country's endangered species, so badly in need of protection before they disappear forever. These organizations and other groups, with their passionate staff and volunteers, all helping to protect and restore Arizona's most special places for future generations to enjoy in its natural state. Many studies have shown the healing effects of nature and wildlife for so many of life's stresses. Nature has a way of slowing down our busy lives to see and smell the flowers and hear the sounds of woodpeckers, grackles, and hummingbirds nearby. That is the doctor's formula for everyone's heart and soul. The Sonoran Desert was formed fairly recently in geological terms. Somewhere around 50,000 years ago, it transformed from a more tropical climate to a drier, more arid desert with a really new, strange cast of plants and animals that would become well suited for their new environments. Arizona's nature and wildlife are abundant, partially thanks to the variety of elevations, our state's latitude, and the natural geologic forces of Mother Nature over almost 2 billion years. These forces, wind, rain, and snow, etched and carved out today's geology, and will do so for the millennia to come here in our Grand Canyon state. Arizona's elevations change dramatically from the alpine tundra near Flagstaff at over 12,000 feet above sea level to the lower Colorado Basin near Yuma at just 70 feet above sea level. What a contrast in altitude, temperature, and precipitation. These diverse habitats each support uniquely evolved geography and the plants and animals that thrive in the variety of harsh conditions, each adapted over the millennia with the survival skills to carry on its species and complete its function in the complex web of life. The state of Arizona is the 48th state and the 6th largest in the country according to geography, as well as Maricopa County having the distinction as being the fastest growing county in the country. It is almost 400 miles from the north to the south and 310 miles east to west, and it encompasses almost 113,900 square miles. Arizona is home to 3 national parks, the Grand Canyon, Saguaro National Park, and the Petrified National Park. There are 6 national forests, 3 state parks, and 16 national monuments here in the Grand Canyon state. What an unbelievable opportunity for citizens and visitors alike to enjoy the variety of landscapes and elevations our state has to offer. We need to realize our stewardship responsibilities. The more we have, the more we have to lose. Our state symbols include the state flower, the saguaro cactus flower, our state tree, the Palo Verde tree, the state butterfly, the two-tailed swallowtail. Our state fish is the Apache trout, the state reptile, the ridge-nosed rattlesnake. Our state bird is the cactus wren, and state mammal, the ringtail. Arizona's state gem is turquoise, and our state fossil is petrified wood. These symbols provide a glimpse into the nature and wildlife Arizona supports, its many protected areas we all value so greatly, each providing us with a rich and diverse habitat filled with biodiversity. Large landscapes found around the world are called biomes, and Arizona is fortunate to be home of many. Let's take a drive and explore some of these biomes. We will start at the top of the alpine tundra habitat near Flagstaff, over 12,000 feet in elevation. This barren, windswept landscape supports very little vegetation, and no trees can survive the hostile conditions. Plant life here is limited to low-lying shrubs that can handle the rocky extremes and limited growing season. Only the hardiest of animals spend much time here, mostly during the brief growing season, with its longer days, warmer temperatures, sunshine. Traveling down the mountains from the most southern alpine tundra in the country, we arrive in the coniferous forest, around 9,000 feet or so. A stark difference from the endless barren landscape to being immersed in the emerald green forest in every direction, evergreen trees rising majestically toward the sparkling blue sky. Ponderosa pines dominate the landscape in some areas, while Douglas fir is favored by the logging industry for its prime timber value. Spruce and quaking aspen round out the familiar trees in the coniferous forest of Arizona. Animals thrive at these elevations with abundant cones and seeds, meeting their nutritional needs and providing habitats at home. Megafauna include top predators such as the mountain lions, bobcats, badgers, and bears, and many smaller carnivores, finding comfort in the forest of Arizona. The forest floor also supports an incredible array of our planet's most abundant species, the insects that make up 2/3 of our planet's species and that provide the foundation of the food web. Birds are numerous, with the primary inhabitants being the jay, sparrow, woodpecker, junco, and chickadee. Raptors like hawks and owls are also at home here in the forest. Large herbivores include elk and deer, and bighorn sheep in some areas. The coniferous forest of Arizona have so much more value, standing in large, uncut ribbons of forest. home to critical flora and fauna, and a source of peace, beauty, and healing. As we travel further down the mountain, the forests are filled with oak woodland pine habitats. This elevation, around 7,000 feet, is full of biodiversity. The variety of deciduous trees that lose their leaves each fall, and a feast of seeds, nuts, berries for many of Arizona's birds, mammals, and reptiles that find refuge in the oak pine woodland habitats. A rare chance where the plants and animals, as well as the humans, can experience all four seasons that are not the typical Arizona habitats we think of, but home to precious resources we must protect and preserve forever. Further down the mountain, we travel to around 5,000 feet in elevation, and we find ourselves in the chaparral landscape. So different than just a few miles ago. The chaparral biome of the high desert is characterized by sweeping vistas and blue skies. Its landscape is dominated by small trees like juniper and other plants and bushes with their familiar waxy leaves, helping protect them from hungry critters and fires. Grasses and forbs are well adapted to the dry, windy conditions with lots of extreme hot and cold temperatures and poor rocky soil. Even in these tough conditions, there are a lot of hardy herbivores that do just fine here in the chaparral. One of my favorite animals, and the only antelope in the United States, lives here in Arizona's chaparral landscape, the pronghorn antelope. Downward we venture to a disappearing biome all over the United States. The grassland habitat is home to some of the country's most endangered species. There are so many varieties of grasses, herbs, and forbs, protecting the soils from erosion and waste. Grasslands also provide an incredible variety of seeds for many birds, mammals, and herbivores, but much of it long gone to agriculture and monoculture. Finally, we arrive to the Sonoran Desert, in our state's iconic landscape, filled with the saguaro cacti, seen by many of us in the early Western films. Our Sonoran Desert is the most biodiverse desert in the United States. The reason being is that it is a special desert, receives a bimodal rain pattern. In the winter, we receive a couple of inches of rain during the gentle, longer rains from the Pacific Ocean currents off the west coast in January and February. Then, if we're lucky, we receive the summer monsoons, which may bring torrential storms, flooding, destruction, and even death, but critical for all beings, including us here in the desert. The summer rains are what help so many diverse species of plants and animals, and especially our early native ancestors that have inhabited Arizona for over 12,000 years. These wise and brilliant peoples were one with the land, woven in its geography, understanding its complicated nuances and the survival strategies that helped them survive until natural changes in climate and a foreign invader came. The Sonoran Desert is home to some of our planet's most unique and strange creatures. Endemic only to this Sonoran Desert, the saguaro cactus is our most iconic symbol. Its amazing adaptations to store water in its pleats for months and live to 200 years is one of nature's finest creations. The saguaro flower provides rich resources for the many pollinators that visit this giant white disc-like bloom that comes out at night. It attracts nighttime pollinators like bats and moths and other insects that receive the life-giving nectar and help the giant saguaro reproduce through pollination. The early summer fruit is a delicious treat for the birds and many animals that get much of their water eating these juicy red fruit of the saguaro cactus. Many other cacti, succulents, and annuals are well suited for the desert conditions, with little amount of scattered rainfall, extreme arid heat, the scorching sun. Trees like the Palo Verde, mesquite, and ironwood form our forest or bosques, where they help stabilize and create rich nutrients for the poor rocky soils so prevalent in the desert. The Sonoran Desert habitat is home to many reptiles like the scary Gila monster and the gentle plant-eating chuckwalla, and of course the iconic desert tortoise. There are so many different varieties of flora and fauna, elevations, and landscapes that make Arizona's Sonoran Desert one of our planet's most special deserts and a place we love and treasure. There are a few places I discovered that have touched my heart and taken my breath away and are etched deeply within my psyche forever. These places are such special and rare opportunities for aha moments, a Combination of being in the right place at the right time and a wonderful Arizona Game and Fish wildlife viewing guide have helped me explore these habitats in special places. One of those is in a small corner of southeastern Arizona, lies a few acre wetland area. Nothing much to look at or ever drive to this small wetland. The area now restored from cattle grazing by a prior ranch owner. Close to 50 years later, this small Arizona protected area called Whitewater Draw is a winter migratory stop for massive flocks of one of our country's most beautiful, colorful, large birds. These birds are up to 3 feet tall, long-legged, with gray body and a red head cap. Flocks have been surveyed up to 40,000 roosting in the wetlands, huddled close together for warmth in the freezing winter nights of southeastern Arizona. Huddling together, protecting them from the top predators that live in the habitats. And each morning, at precisely sunrise, this tiny wetland becomes a scene from Jurassic Park. Sounds of thousands of sandhill cranes conjures up an image of pterodactyls in Mortal Kombat flying through the sky. This scene unfolds for almost an hour, right as the sun is rising in the sky. It is impossible to describe, but only able to be experienced. A definite aha moment in my life. Another place, this one with a long and special history for me, is Mount Lemmon near Tucson. I fell in love with Mount Lemmon in 1981 as a college student. Mount Lemmon was an escape from lots of study about finance, economics, and accounting. Today, I know and love the Catalina Mountain Range and other Sky Island habitats in southern Arizona, where they're endangered and rare species of plants and animals, endemic only to these remote, isolated mirages in the desert. The drive from the city lights of Tucson, slowly climbing round and round, hairpin turns, at a maximum speed of about 30 miles per hour. As you climb higher, the landscape slowly changes to grasslands and small shrubs, which support their own unique nature, geography, temperatures, now a little cooler, and the area receiving more precipitation. Winding further into the core of the mountains, the vistas, the Rocky Mountain geography, and wildlife change. Soon the scenery changes dramatically as you come around yet another bend to see the tall evergreens hugging their way up the mountains to the very peaks, seemingly reaching toward the most amazing blue skies above. Temperatures are almost 25 degrees cooler, and the mountain air crisp and refreshing, away from the city smog. It's hard to believe the changes in 25 miles and 10,000 feet of elevation. Feeling you're in the forest oasis, surrounded by ponderosa pine, fir, and spruce, and the magnificent quaking aspens that put on one of fall's most spectacular color displays. There are few pleasures in life more nourishing to my heart and soul and body than a day exploring at Mount Lemmon and the Sky Islands of southern Arizona. The diversity of bird life, reptiles, and mammals is so amazing and critically important to protect for a healthy environment. Closer to home, in a much lower elevation, lies the Salt River Recreation Area in Tonto National Forest. Located in the desert, this ribbon of life provides a corridor and mecca for living creatures, including us humans, who treasure its soothing, refreshing waters and a cool beverage while tubing down the river. On many days, visitors will get a glimpse of the special residents who visit each day for water to survive the harsh conditions only a few yards away, home to the wild horses. The Salt and Verde rivers have been home to our Native American ancestors for thousands of years and to our wild horses for decades. The Salt River and the Tonto National Forest are a lifeline for the desert plants and animals, and us as well. Another life-flowing river in Phoenix area is the Verde River, also in Tonto National Forest, with parts of it on Native American tribal lands. A place called Needle Rock is one of my favorite places to see wildlife, along the winding river's banks, lined with cottonwood, willow, and other riparian vegetation, providing food, shelter, water, and life for some of Arizona's most valued flora and fauna. Leaving Needle Rock after just a few hours and the amazing experience, I felt so much hope for the future of Arizona's nature and wildlife. The McDowell Sonoran Preserve is one of Scottsdale's most valued and finest ideas. Now, over 30,000 acres in the McDowell Mountains are protected because of the citizens of Scottsdale voting twice to raise sale taxes and purchase and preserve these special mountains, which are a migratory corridor for wildlife, and provide gorgeous vistas for all to enjoy, uncluttered from developments, roads, and motor vehicles. What an urban oasis for us to hike, bike, birdwatch, or just relax in a higher elevation, away from all the stresses of everyday life, located right here in our backyard. Many volunteers help keep and restore the many trails in the preserve, while scientists study the wildlife and plants that are icons of the Sonoran Desert, full with its biodiversity. Finally, I end my photo-video documentary in our state's most iconic landscape, the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. Unlike anywhere else on the planet, and one of the world's 7 wonders, it is the ultimate in creation, taking almost 2 billion years of geology and Earth's elements to form. A masterpiece greater than any artist or sculptor could ever dream or imagine, all protected as a national park, our country's best idea for future generations to be moved by its splendor and majesty. All who come will be changed by the experience of how small we really are and the grandeur of our state's symbol. The sheer wilderness, vast vistas around every corner, and layer upon layer of rock formations, each telling its own story of Arizona's geological history and our state's legacy. One we must all take seriously to protect, preserve, and savor for millennia to come. All of us who live and visit Arizona's many and varied landscapes experience a caring and empathy for these places. Then, once experienced, we feel a responsibility and a fierce desire to protect and preserve the places we treasure. Please consider opportunities to volunteer your time, talent, and treasure to preserve the one and beautiful planet we call home. There are many ways to get involved. At home, think about the simple things: lights, water, wasting food, less red meat. In your yards, plant lots of native trees and shrubs, which create oxygen and absorb CO2. They also attract wonderful pollinators like butterflies and hummingbirds. Any water structure like a pond or fountain here in the desert creates an oasis of nature. You can donate your time, talent, and treasure to the many organizations discussed here and the many more around the valley, the country, and across the globe. We need all our planet's resources and biodiversity to support the 7.8 billion of us today in 2019 and in the future if our human species chooses to live for millennia to come.